She's a marketing rock star with a unique cross-industry skill set encompassing branding, performance marketing, innovation, honed in executive roles with Uber, Capital One, and Microsoft. This year, she brought that expertise to one of the world's most iconic hotel brands. Please welcome Hilton's Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, Kellyn Smith-Kenny.
Hi. Hi,
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Welcome to Phocuswright and welcome to the travel industry.
Thanks. It's a very welcoming group, I must say.
Exactly. So you have an incredible background with three really iconic companies who are really specialized in their thing, which is a great skill set. So can you share some of the lessons you learned at each of those and how you're kind of applying them to Hilton? Or maybe go chronologically with Microsoft, something like that.
So I definitely feel fortunate for the career I've had. I've been blessed to work with amazing brands, amazing companies, and they have all been on a journey. And so the learnings I had there, just watching these companies grow up and evolve, absolutely apply to where we are today with Hilton. So I'll start with Microsoft. I came into Microsoft at a time where the company was a little bit distracted by the competition, a little bit in love with our own tech, and a bit disconnected from our own customers. And what we quickly realized, and this was the beauty of Microsoft, is they were able to pivot quickly, but we needed to focus on the customer, not the competition. And sort of that famous Einstein quote that says, you want to be as simple as possible, but no simpler. We had to sort of get all of that feature proliferation out of the way so we could really be simple. And I think kind of that spirit of focusing on the customer is just so alive and well today and vibrant in Hilton's culture.
And kind of the core of the hotel industry.
Absolutely.
Hospitality is
100%.
Only that, right?
That's right.
So, how about Capital One?
So Capital One, it sort of was like the original performance marketing company before there was such a thing called performance marketing. They just did it through direct mail. They were the largest customer of the United States Postal Service. And the thing that Capital One learned over time was the power of brand. And you can think what you want about financial services, but that company is an absolute powerhouse at product marketing. And the reason they are so good at product marketing is because they only build products that are actually marketable. And the discipline and the rigor that is required to stay the course and make sure that the things you are building we can actually put into marketing because they're super compelling is a lesson that I've carried with me throughout my entire career.
I think the hotel industry can learn a couple things about that, too. Excellent. And then finally, Uber, where you really kind of started with a clean slate.
That's right. So I've got stories, but I don't think we're going into all those stories today on Uber.
I think so.
I'd say two of the big important lessons. Uber was literally born on a mobile app, which was so fundamentally different than most other companies. And what we started doing, it was crazy, 80% of our performance marketing mix was actually on mobile. And this was at a time when other traditional companies were like, should I spend 5% of my advertising dollars on mobile? And we're spending 80%, and we're showing extreme velocity. Marketing was a tremendous growth engine for Uber. And so, of course, no, the mix at Hilton is not going to be 80%, but this isn't something that I'm sort of tiptoeing into delicately. I know this is a channel that can work extremely hard for us. The other thing that we saw at Uber, and I think every industry has felt it, certainly this category has felt it, every adjacent industry, was sort of seeing that proliferation of the need that consumers had for instant gratification. I push a button, I get a ride, and I get that hit of dopamine. I get that sugar rush, that sugar high. And we're seeing that sort of the frictionless payments. This is what people want. They're like, if Amazon can deliver me giant household goods in a day or two, and Uber can give me instant gratification, a person I've never met before meets me at my door within a minute and takes me to where I want to go, that fundamentally changes the expectations they have of other brands they interact with.
Exactly. So you're the one who's really ruined that for all the hoteliers sliding by with all that friction. They thank you. So let's just shift gears in a little bit of context about Hilton first for some of the people who aren't familiar with it, because it is a pretty incredible company. Pull some numbers from the last year's 10K, so I'm sure it's larger than this, but 5,300 properties, 850,000 rooms across 14 hotel brands. They have 2,300 properties in the pipeline with another 345,000 rooms. So this is a high growth thing. One interesting dimension you might not realize, 85% of their properties are franchised because a lot of the hotels have gone, Wall Street's kind of pushed them toward the asset light model. 12% they manage, so they don't own the underlying asset, they manage it. And then really only 1.5% of the rooms, or 1.5% of the properties, 2.5% of the rooms are fully owned, managed, controlled. So a little bit different from Uber, where you kind of do everything. Here, you've got a whole bunch of owners and other folks to work with. So before you were hired, did they explain that to you, or they figured that was on-the-job training?
I did a lot of homework in preparation for my interviews with Chris Nassetta and Kevin Jacobs and Matt Schuyler, so I prepped myself.
Yeah.
But you know, one of the things that's interesting is, in the same case with Uber, we had independent contractors driving all of those cars. People didn't, you know, they weren't our employees. Yeah. You had to find a way to motivate and really win those drivers over. Obviously, the team members inside Hilton are very different than the Uber drivers, but we absolutely want to build a culture that sort of has this magnetic attraction, so every team member in the hotels that bear a Hilton flag feel like they are really sort of the physical manifestation of our brand, which is a tall order for sure.
Absolutely. Another thing, just quickly for context on the competition, Hilton's fundamentally different from a lot of the major hotel companies. Hilton has taken a tack of not growing by acquisition. And obviously, everyone knows the Marriott Starwood acquisition that wound up with 29 brands that they're still trying to kind of rationalize and work through. But there's been a lot of other M&A activity. Wyndham bought Americans, and this is just since you joined Hilton. Yep. Actually. Wyndham bought Americans and La Quinta. Accor bought 21C Museum Hotels. SBE, who also has the Morgans Hotel Group properties. Last month, Hyatt bought Two Roads, which is Destination Hotels, Joie de Vivre, and Thompson. And this week, Jing Zhang, I think, closed on their acquiring the majority interest in Radisson. So there is a lot of M&A, and you're the one who's just going to grow organically, Hilton. So that's great. No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure.
So
I mean,
what?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to talk a little bit about brand clutter, because if you search on Hilton.com for New York City hotels, you get 51 hotels back, which is a lot. Marriott.com, you get 199. So are you envious or relieved when you see that kind of ratio?
So going back to your earlier point, I would say it does take a tremendous amount of financial discipline and knowing your business model, knowing who you are, and knowing how you want to grow. And the thing that we always say inside Hilton, you know, we look at our brand swim lanes. We think we've got clearly defined value propositions for each of our brands, but there is, in fact, white space. And that's why we actually launched our new brand motto last month. But again, the discipline and the rigor that went into that was years in the making. And you know, there's some other things that we have in our pipeline that we're working on as well. But no, I don't think we're envious of a position where there's a tremendous amount of clutter, where it's unclear how one brand is different from the next. We want there to be not just gray lines, blurred lines. We want there to be stark black lines between the different products we offer. Otherwise, it leads to a tremendous amount of customer confusion. And frankly, we see that in the research. We see that you know, when we peer into the souls of humans and we want to understand how they shop this category, they are overwhelmed with options. They are overwhelmed with and confused by what's out there.
Right.
It's just not helpful.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Motto, because I think it's a great example of a truly well-differentiated brand. I mean, there's not really anything like, why don't you give a little rundown of the Hostel and the
I mean, you know, the thing that I love about Motto is, again, this was one of those very human-centered design pieces of product development. We started with who is the customer we want to serve. Then we thought about who are the owners that are going to be hungry for this type of an opportunity. And then we thought about what are the ways that we can make it truly marketable, because we are solving an unmet need for a part of the customer base, the total addressable market, that is growing. Right? The velocity that this segment is growing is no joke. And right now, if we held up the mirror to our current 15 trading brands, we'd say, we actually don't meet this need. And so we love investments like that. The trouble, as you mentioned before, with acquiring through acquisition of other brands is they start sort of bubbling up on top of each other, and everybody is kind of grabbing for the same dinner plate.
Yeah. And Motto, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, 160 square foot, so it's a micro hotel room size, but very much inspired by really kind of hostels and that sort of thing. So really something very different. Now, you're also doing some other interesting things where at McCormick Place, you're doing a triple-branded hotel. So I think you've got, what, 187 Hampton Inn rooms stacked on top of 184 Hilton Garden Inn rooms and 95 Home to Suites, right? So you got a 466-room hotel. So, like when I was at Four Seasons, that was one hotel, and we had different room categories. So do you see more of that happening, or?
You know, I think it all depends on what the market tells us, and all depends on how customers respond to what we're doing. We're trying to be incredibly pioneering with opportunities like this. The thing we love about what you've just described is, again, those three brands have very distinct personalities and have very distinct customer bases. And so the customer who wants to stay in a home too is radically different than the customer who wants to stay at a Hampton Inn. But can we share services? Can we share amenities? Absolutely. I mean, it's funny. I even had friends who were saying, I've booked my family reunion so that some people are in the home too, some people are in the Hampton, and so it's actually more convenient for families like that.
Right. Robert, we have a question from the floor.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi. Can I just ask about your focus on Gen Z and millennials? A couple of presentations yesterday talked about the power of this demographic, this generation, and how big they're going to be in the next 2 years, how much they already travel, how much they spend of their disposable income on travel. Presumably, Uber has had a decent focus on those demographics as well, and how has that prepared you for how you look at that opportunity for Hilton?
Yeah, great question. So one of the key things we know about this segment is that they spend money on experiences. They want to get out into the world. They want to travel. And even sort of in the Uber Insights framework, they wanted to even just explore the cities they were in. So there's this hunger and this need to really get out there into the world and experience it firsthand. There's a couple of things we're doing to make sure that we address sort of the unmet needs of them in the travel category. The first thing is actually building out new brands that are very much inspired by the wants and needs of the Gen Zs and the millennials. Motto, as we've talked about, which these are going to be in downtown urban locations, which historically have been too expensive for people to afford hotel stays. We're actually changing the game with our Motto brand. The other thing that we're doing is we're trying to set the record straight on the booking experience and the booking relationship that they should be having with hotels versus online travel sites. And you saw some of the ads that we're running as part of our Expect Better, Expect Hilton campaign. But what we've seen with that campaign is actually we now have double, just in 6 weeks, twice as many millennials are talking about Hilton as they were before in social channels. We've seen a 22% increase in consideration in millennials. Again, that's just in 6 weeks of having this campaign live. So as we build out what are our proof points, as we talk about what are the most compelling things that we can put into our marketing and advertising, we are very much making sure that that is a segment we resonate with. And as we think about the segments we need to target, if marketing is going to become a growth engine for Hilton the way it was at Uber, we're getting very serious about the groups that you've just described. Thanks.
The magic of relevant messaging and Anna Kendrick.
Yes.
Right? That's the key. That's great. I really want to get into performance marketing. Some of you may be disappointed we aren't going to spend a lot of time on the Airbnb thing. Just a quick Phocuswright stat, 54% of US travelers consider alternative accommodation, whatever you want to call it, for vacation rentals, whatever, and hotels in the same session. So that's a kind of a reality. And then also on the OTA side, just very quickly, obviously that's an elephant in the room and a big thing. But again, I really want to get into the tech and loyalty side. Phocuswright shows that 61% of travelers, at least in the U.S., believe OTAs are less expensive, which is that's a challenging task. And only 27% of that younger cohort, the 18 to 34 rate, really book direct. So you've got some headwinds there. Plus, you've got Booking and Expedia spending what, $9 billion on it. So what are you doing to really try to change those perceptions and pull people?
Gosh, I have so many thoughts on this. So this was, no surprise to anybody in the audience, one of the first things that Chris and John started talking to me about when I arrived on the scene at Hilton. They're like, we have to make sure that we've stopped, by the way, talking about direct bookings, and we've started talking about direct relationships. We have to build relationships with our customers.
Can I get a hallelujah, please?
And what we started talking about was, look, we want to make sure we understand the right way to talk about relationships. And so we did a ton of research, and there were some very powerful insights that we surfaced. Number one is that there is this incredible sea of sameness thing going on. And with the billions of dollars that some of our friends in the online travel agents are putting into the market, it's creating a ton of customer confusion. And that customer confusion is eroding trust. And I have to tell you, back in my financial services days and back in my tech days, I wasn't surprised when I saw trust scores going down. We sort of knew in those industries that there was a ton of skepticism in the customer base. But for hospitality, to be seeing a trust deficit, I mean, it's at crisis proportions. And then the other thing was we started to evaluate our segments on the spectrum of, like, how trusting are they of hotel suppliers versus how distrusting are they? And there's this whole spectrum of people. There are the ragers who feel like the game is rigged. You have to open up 16 different browsers if you want to get a good deal. We spoke to a woman who literally says she books her travel in the public library because she is afraid that somebody, you know, that she's being followed around, her little footprint, and she's getting dynamically priced out of the right price for her. I mean, that's how much paranoia and skepticism there is. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to go at it very directly, talk very plainly. And what we've said to people, if you want to stay at one of the 15 trading brands that Hilton offers, book it on Hilton.com. You're going to get not only the best price, but the best value, because you get the perks with us. You have this great selection of curated properties, and we'll give you the price match guarantee. And being able to talk to people about this guarantee, which, by the way, we have had this policy for decades, but we didn't talk about it. Just being able to say that we have the price match guarantee, we've seen our trust scores improve. We've sort of seen the cool factor and the innovation factor also improve as heuristics that are very important to a hotel supplier that's 99 years old. And so we're trying to go just straight at it and make sure that customers know we're here to set the record straight. We want to be your, your friend, your support as you go about the experience of travel, because you should feel supported.
Right.
Robert, question from the floor.
Oh, thanks, John.
Thanks. So really a follow-up on the performance marketing side. You talked about getting building that direct relationship, but how does Hilton go about getting a greater share of the shoppers that are coming in through Google and competing with the online travel agents for those leads? Or has Hilton already lost when the shopper is going to Google instead of directly to Hilton.com? Thanks.
Okay. So look, one of the things that's important, Google is obviously a very important platform for us to be engaging with, as are all of the meta sites, as are all of the OTAs. And to the extent that those partners actually drive incremental trips and incremental room nights and incremental bookings to Hilton, we welcome it. The point that you've described, what we don't want is people intercepting our customers who were otherwise just going to type in Hilton.com at the last second and sort of grabbing them at that final moment of truth. And so one of the things we're trying to do is we're getting much more serious about our organic game plan. We're getting much more serious in the coming months and coming quarters about how we invest in meta, how we invest in brand plus geo, making sure that we have 100% penetration, particularly when people are actually naming Hilton. That's actually not a place that we'd always historically been, so we've got to be way more disciplined. And frankly, we need to spend more money in some of those channels. Now, having said that, I also need for my team to resist the urge to just go after all that lower funnel volume, that sugar high volume, because we have to build the brand. And there's only a fixed set of money. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars, not $9 billion. So we do need to be incredibly disciplined about making sure we're actually building up the esteem and prestige of these brands. And if you pour all of your money into the sugar high and you don't have protein, you don't have brand marketing, you are going to suffer in the end. And we see, cautionary tales outside of our industry all the time of companies who got lured into just 10 more million here, 10 more million here, 100 more million here, and then before you know it, your actually core brand has eroded.
Yeah, move it from rewards to loyalty, right? That's the key. Yesterday, your friend Bill Gurley had a little quote: "For the life of me, I cannot understand what is wrong with the hotel industry in the United States when it comes to technology."
Yes. So I need to send Bill Gurley a text. So Bill was on the board of Uber while I was there. And let me tell you about the experience I had yesterday. He was sort of, I think, leveling a few criticisms that, hey, Hertz has had the program, and you can go straight to the car and drive off the lot. And they've had that for 30 years. Why can't I do that at a hotel? And so what I would say to Bill is, you can when you stay at a Hilton. And so yesterday, let me describe my experience. I was in an Uber on my way to Hilton Checkers. My daughter had selected my room. My daughter in DC had logged into my account and selected my room, so I knew I was staying in room 703. I then bypassed the check-in area. I went straight to my room. I opened it up with my digital key. Before I had gotten there, my daughter texted hey, my mom needs a hypoallergenic pillow. It was in my room waiting for me. And then this morning when I woke up, I didn't do the thing on the door where I had to like tick in all of my breakfast order. I just sent a chat to the concierge and I said, I'd like an omelet with tomatoes and a decaf coffee, and 30 minutes later, it was in my room. Like, all of that is possible. Oh, and by the way, I checked out in the app as well, and the bill came directly to my account. So that stuff is available. We've got select your room in all of our hotels. We've got digital key in over 4,000 properties. So sort of the dream state that Bill Gurley envisions, it has arrived, and it's been here for a couple of years. He just needs to become a Hilton Honors member. So I'm going to call him, and I'm going to recruit him. And by the way, it's complimentary. There's no charge. And if he vows to give me his business, I might even be able to get him into like silver status in an accelerated way.
So you're promising stay at Hilton will be as seamless as Uber. We'll give you, you've been there for what, 9 months? We'll give you, come back next year and we'll see if you're done.
Yes, let's talk about it next year.
Thanks very much. Please.
Thank you, guys.
Kellyn Smith-Kenny, thanks much.
Thanks. That was great.